This is the examination of the hidden human condition.
You're listening to the Hidden Killers Podcast.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast with Tony Brueski.
Forensic psychologist Kate Wallinga is joining us today. We are talking about the current case against Bryan Kohberger. We are hearing claims now that the evidence, the DNA, was planted. The accusations coming from the defense of Kohberger. I guess my question to you is, do you feel like any of this has any legs, or is this just a continuation of let's see what sticks?
Oh, clearly they are throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah.
Let's make anything. And that's the defense's job.
Sure.
The defense's job is to make sure that the police followed procedure to the letter. And they need to show that it was followed to the letter. And one way by doing that is you call into question everything, just everything, even if it seems a little ridiculous. And Kohberger kind of had two options. He could have followed the path of BTK. Okay, you caught me. I know you caught me. Fine, I'm just going to plead guilty and I'm going to talk about this stuff in court and we're going to be done. He could have done that, but why would he? He doesn't have any family or standing in the community to speak of, and he thinks he's smarter than police, and this is a game to him. And why would he want the game to end early? Like, I think this is a guy who is going to want this to go into extra innings.
Very much seems like that. Yesterday, or the other day, I should say, was the deadline for him to produce an alibi for this case. He did not. All we heard was just the day before the accusations that evidence was planted. What does it mean that he did not produce any sort of alibi by the court's deadline?
He doesn't have one.
Other than the obvious.
If you're willing to kill 4 people by stabbing, which is incredibly personal and up close and intense, you've already got a shaky sense of morality. Yes, duh. I acknowledge that that's not a super deep, insightful statement, but
tell me more, Kate.
I know, right? But the reality is, if you're willing to do that, then lying about an alibi is nothing. It's no big.
Yeah.
He's just going to say whatever he can say to make this last as long as it can last. He's hoping that, because he does have some supporters out there, not a ton, but he does have some supporters. Mm-hmm. How cool would it be if somebody would have just stepped forward and say, yes, I'll go on the stand and say that I saw you entering the dorm that night.
Sure.
How great would it be for him? There's a case out in New York State. Peter Porcro and his wife were attacked in their bed, and their son Chris was identified by the mother, who survived, but with severe traumatic brain injury. And so she identified him as the attacker. And then after a significant amount of time in the hospital, came out and said, oh no, my boy would never do that. And I believe that's her brain trying to protect itself from the abject horror of being attacked by her son with an axe in bed. Sure. But the reason that I bring it up is that they lived outside of Albany, New York, and he was attending college in Rochester, New York, which is about a 3-hour drive, give or take. And he made a big point of saying, I was in my dorm the whole night. I was sleeping on the couch because somebody else was using my room that night. And so anybody could have seen me. And if no one had walked through the common area of the dorm, that would have been a halfway decent alibi.
Sure.
Like, at least nobody can prove it wrong. The problem is one of his buddies did walk through in the middle of the night and didn't see him there. But there's this feeling of, you got to try.
Sure. And with Kohberger, it feels like he's not. We've been hearing for the last half year has been, I'm looking forward to being exonerated, or he's looking forward to being exonerated by his attorney saying that. Yet we have yet to see any inch of exonerating evidence against him presented to end this. And if you have truly exonerating evidence, you'd be filing a motion to present that, to wrap this up, not necessarily
avoid court.
Yeah.
What I'm fascinated by, honestly, in that case, is that I've been super aware of the fact that with all of the press conferences and so on, all of the motions in court, they're not letting him speak.
Sure.
They're speaking for him. I suspect that when and if he does speak for himself, it's incredibly off-putting.
Yeah.
And unemotional and with a pretty impressive lack of empathy for other human beings and to know how to speak and not to speak about violence and things like that. So his lawyers are doing what they can. They're flailing. They're throwing the spaghetti at the wall and saying, let's see what sticks. But the fact that he's not speaking for himself is incredibly telling to me.
This is an examination of the hidden human condition.
This is the Hidden Killers Podcast
with Tony Brueski.